This happened a few winters ago. I had just finalized my divorce about 6 months earlier, and to be honest, I really needed a change of scenery. My then-girlfriend, Sarah, suggested that we take a trip somewhere quiet, away from the chaos of everything I had been dealing with. We found a rental by a lake in a remote area of upstate New York, and without much thought, I booked it for a week. It was exactly what I was looking for. A modern, yet cozy house positioned right on the lake, surrounded by woods, with only a handful of other properties scattered along the shore. Most of them were empty, exactly how I liked it. I just wanted to be far from civilization. We arrived in the morning, and when we got there was a small package sitting on the front steps waiting for us. No return address, just a handwritten note that said, "Enjoy your stay, don't forget to stay warm." I thought the note was a bit odd, but nothing out of the ordinary. Inside the box was just a tiny box of matches. Sarah joked that it was some kind of welcome gift, though a strange one. I laughed and made a joke about how people from upstate are a little quirky, but we shrugged it off and continued with our trip. The first 2 days were perfect. Long hikes through the snow, hot drinks by the fireplace, total peace and quiet. I should mention that the snow had been steadily falling since we arrived. It wasn't a blizzard, no heavy wind or fog, but enough snow to make the landscape look untouched and serene. It was exactly the peace I needed. The house was beautiful, with the master bedroom on the second floor, which had these massive windows that overlooked the lake. The roof, or at least the windows, must have been pretty thin, because we could hear the sound of the snowflakes from inside, which was a nice touch. There was also a skylight, so we could fall asleep to the beautiful sky and snow falling slowly. It was on the third night that everything changed. I woke up in the middle of the night, not to a loud sound, but to something that stirred me. At first, I thought it was just the wind and snow, but soon I realized that something else was happening. The snowfall had gotten much heavier, turning the landscape into more of a blizzard. Then I heard a sound. It wasn't natural. Something was off. The sound was almost mechanical, and that made me feel uneasy. I quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake Sarah, and made my way to the window. When I looked outside, I saw the last thing I expected to see: a snowmobile slowly moving across the ice. It wasn't the most abnormal sight. People drive snowmobiles on frozen lakes all the time. But I was confused, considering how late it was. The snow had picked up, and visibility was poor, but I could still make out the figure of the driver, moving cautiously, as if they weren't sure about the ice. Then, the snowmobile stopped. I watched as the person climbed off and began waving their arms frantically, like they were in distress. It looked like they were shouting, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. To my horror, I realized they were facing our house. Did they know we were here? That seemed impossible. Either way, it looked like they needed help. So I woke Sarah and told her what was happening. Then I got dressed, went downstairs, and stepped outside onto the deck. It was freezing, even with all the layers I was wearing. As soon as I opened the door, I was hit with another surprise. The person on the ice was a woman. I could tell because she was shouting for help, saying, "Thank God someone's here." She sounded completely desperate. She kept saying that she had lost her little boy in the snowstorm and was looking for him. The panic in her voice sounded genuine, and I didn't hesitate for a second. There was a child out there in this weather alone. They weren't going to last long. I laced my boots and made my way toward the lake, telling Sarah to stay inside. As I got closer, I started to notice more details about the woman. She was bundled up in a thick fur coat, and her hair was pulled back in a tight braid. The ice was completely solid. There wasn't a chance of falling through, so I started to relax, knowing that it would have been impossible for a little boy to fall through. But then, she said something that made me freeze. She said her son had run away from home, and she was looking for him. That made me pause. I had expected her to say something like, "He fell off her snowmobile," and she hadn't noticed. But then, I started thinking about how ridiculous that story sounded. How the hell do you not notice your own kid falling off a snowmobile? I had let adrenaline cloud my judgment, and I didn't even think about it until then. I was about to ask her for more details when she said something that literally froze me. She asked me if I still had those matches. In an instant, it all clicked. The matches, the note, the package from the first day. The matches were from her, not our host. Before I could react, she pulled a gun out from under her coat and demanded my wallet and phone. I had no choice. I handed them over. The whole interaction happened in less than 30 seconds, and without another word, she climbed back onto the snowmobile and disappeared into the whiteout. I turned toward the house and ran as fast as I could on the ice, shouting for Sarah to call the police. She was already on the phone with them when I made it back inside. I locked the doors and paced the room, still shaking. I kept looking outside, half expecting to see that snowmobile circling back. The cops arrived about an hour later. By that point, the fresh snow had already covered any tracks the woman had left behind. Sarah was hysterical, but I was mostly angry. I had come here for peace, not this. There was hope, though. I couldn't think of a reliable way that the woman had gotten her snowmobile onto the lake, so I expected the police to at least find the vehicle abandoned somewhere. Unfortunately, I was wrong. The police searched the area and found an old boat ramp on the far side of the lake. Their best guess was that she had come from there. I was furious and insisted they keep looking, but they told me the same thing I already knew. There wasn't much they could do. Even if she had left something behind, they'd never find it in all that snow. With Sarah's help, I tried tracking my phone, but by that point, it was already offline. The one good thing about the whole ordeal was that the Airbnb host refunded us for the entire trip. He sounded genuine on the phone and confirmed he knew nothing about the welcome package. But something didn't sit right with me. How could that woman have possibly known we'd be staying there? Why would she go to such elaborate lengths just for a simple robbery? I couldn't help but think that the host had something to do with it, but I had no proof. I brought it up with Airbnb, but they were as helpful as you'd expect. I know I've always been a paranoid person, but for the longest time after that, I couldn't shake the feeling that my ex-husband had something to do with it. It honestly makes me angry writing about this. I can just imagine his face, laughing, at my expense. I've since come to terms with how likely that possibility is, but the whole thing still doesn't make sense to me. Even now, I have no idea why someone would go through all of that just for a wallet and phone, unless they were seriously messed up in the head and got some sick pleasure out of it.